Hi, this is Shubert with a review of the Clay Thompson's fifth signature model from Anta. This is the Anta KT5 low version of that. It's unfortunately the first thing that comes to mind when you see this shoe is Curry 6, right? These little dots and the overall silhouette. But it's definitely an upgrade from KT4, which looks like a blatant ripoff of a LeBron 15, is what most people would say. I would not say that. Some amazing designers have said that nothing is original, something is always copied or inspired by something. So yeah, KT5 lows. These shoes, they have the same A flash foam and nice little gradation there. I thought this is reflecting the light in a funny way, but it's just the way that it's painted gently. This is called the dragon fruit colorway. Yes, that's nicely put. Inside of a dragon fruit and the outside of it. The A flash foam has been upgraded significantly compared to the KT4. The KT4 had a much thicker midsole, but it just went down immediately like sponge. So it felt really bad on your tendons or your Achilles when you're sinking that badly. And the KT4s actually had some lackluster cushioning on the forefoot. It was very low to the ground, and there was basically invisible, minimal, non-existing cushioning on the forefoot. So compared to that, this A-flash foam has become somewhat more rigid and bouncier, so it doesn't sink like crazy on the heel. So for the heel, I love it. It's perfect. This is the way it should be. The short absorption and the rebound and the overall comfort when you're just standing around, it's all good. It's got a nice balance of everything, and it's not too crazy thick. It's much thinner than the KT4s. On the forefoot, I feel that the A-flash foam could have been used a little differently, maybe a little bit of a different density or a little bit of a different thickness. But overall, it's definitely more plush compared to the KT4. But personally, I would prefer something a little bit more. Like the Crazy Tide, which is another Anta shoe that I reviewed recently. I mentioned it's overall very low to the ground. They use this foam called the A-Shock foam instead of A-Flash foam. A-Shock foam feels a lot softer, so I think maybe they could have used a thicker A-Shock foam on the forefoot. Even for the Crazy Tide, I felt the A-Shock foam on the forefoot was a little bit lackluster. They could have had maybe 50% more on the forefoot. That would be better. It was still low to the ground that way. That would be the ideal combination for me. The A-Shock foam from Crazy Tide, but 50% thicker. I don't, maybe not 50%, just 30% maybe, but definitely a little bit thicker because it felt good that it's low to the ground, but I wanted a little bit more cushioning. So overall, it's good. It's an improvement from KT4, but still I feel they could do a little bit better with the forefoot cushioning. But of course, what they do a good job of is they use a very plain-looking EVA insole, which is a little bit thicker than the typical EVA insoles you would find. But this worked nicely with the A-flash foam to provide a much more full-length zoom air type of cushioning. It feels a lot more softer and it forms to your feet, so it's good. I guess this is a better choice than the Ortholite foam they used in the past. So sometimes old school design works better than the high-tech 21st century materials sometimes. The lace loop option is quite quite interesting. There's like 3 different areas where you could try and put the loops and see what fits best for you. This little heel accessory here, it's really soft. It's kind of like a harder A-flash foam material. I don't know what it does, but it looks good. Heel cup inside is nice. It clutches your feet nicely. It doesn't provide any heel slip issues. The weight of it is only about 340 grams, less than 340 grams for a size US 9, so that's definitely lighter than a lot of shoes out there. The outrigger is a bit of an issue. I mean, you can see there's a prominent outrigger here, and the base is wide enough to ensure that it prevents ankle rollover, but compared to the KT4s, which did a better job with this TPU, hardened plastic TPU material playing like a wing on the side, so it provides that resistance other than just having a wide base. So that resistance is there. Unfortunately, for the KT5s, this is all just foam, A-flash foam, and maybe this could have gone here instead. So what happens is it gets, as you can see, it's soft, so it gets sunk in. What will happen is it'll fold, and it might not provide the resistance you need. So you might feel that you falter a little bit. Hopefully it stops, but it could go on a little bit further, and yeah, it's not exactly the best type of outrigger or anti-inversion safety mechanism like the one they use in KT4. So this is the only downgrade I feel it has compared to the KT4s. The outsole pattern is pretty much similar to the KT4s, but of course it's got minor changes, pretty much the same but minor changes. So I could call it a 0.4, 0.2, 0.1.5, version 1.5. So it's not a lazy copy and paste like some of the big brands are doing these days, which I find despicable. It fits. If you try the KT4s, I went with a half a size up for the KT4s. I went true to size with the KT5, and I felt there was not much difference. So it's definitely a little bit more roomy on the side. On the width, it's a little bit more giving. I felt this pinching sensation on the KT4 on my pinky toes, but not on this one, even though I went down half a size. The length, it's pretty tight, so if you have long foot, you might want to go up half a size. But the heel, the toe box itself doesn't have a lot of excessive space, which is a problem I had with the KT4s. So that's good. The fit, I would say this is an upgrade, but yeah, I would say go to your normal Nike or Adidas size if you go true to size for most models. But if you fit nicely in crazy narrow shoes like the Kyrie 123s or the Kobe, some of the Kobe models, then you might want to go down half a size if your feet is that narrow. The upper material is sort of like a knit material, but they've named Infinite. Nice little cute wordplay. But I wish they would have just used the knit material and just used some extra stitching on the specific areas that needs to be a little bit firmer and tighter, or maybe coat them a little bit like they did with the toe drag area. That would have been better instead of having another inner booty type of layer. It's a very thin neoprene material, but still that's enough to negate the perforation and the breathability that this material would have brought, like the earlier Flyknit runners that Nike used to produce. They just had this, and they would just sometimes have this promotional event where you steam the shoe with your foot in it, and then you lace it up, and you feel it forming better to the shape of your foot or your toes. So they could have done something like that, but it's unfortunate they just felt insecure and went to glue it or glue an additional material right under the perforated materials. And for the tongue, I wish they would stop doing that. Some people might like this little spandex material hugging your foot, but personally I prefer separated tongue that lets you loosen your lace and just slide your foot in easily instead of having to hold them up, open them wide before you enter your foot. Overall it's an upgrade from the KT4s basically, but just the outrigger could have been a little bit better. They could have had additional improvements in the breathability. I would say overall it's an improvement, especially with the foam materials density and the toe box areas fit, and the fact that they maintain what was the biggest strength of the KT series, which is the traction.